Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Manoj Singh Rana, and with me is R.S. Raghu, bringing glimpses of major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. As the world fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of caution to stay safe and protected by following these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasizes on reforms aimed at creating world-class maritime infrastructure at the Maritime India Summit 2021. India rejects Pakistan and OIC statements at the UNHRC, saying they have no locus standi to comment on Jammu and Kashmir. Microblogging platform Twitter introduces misleading information policy to prevent spread of harmful misinformation on COVID-19. ASEAN to meet over escalating political crisis in Myanmar. Members encourage dialogue between Aung San Suu Kyi and the military. India to participate in exercise Desert Flag 6th hosted by UAE on Wednesday at Al Dhafra Air Base. And in hockey, India and Germany play out a 1-1 draw at the Europe Tour Series. Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, has emphasized on creating world-class maritime infrastructure through various reforms to achieve the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. He said India is very serious about growing in the maritime sector and emerging as a leading blue economy of the world. Speaking after inaugurating Maritime India Summit 2021 through video conferencing on Tuesday, the Prime Minister invited the global investors to come to India and be a part of India's growth trajectory. The 3-day Maritime India Summit 2021 is being organized by the Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways on a virtual platform www.maritimeindiasummit.in. Prime Minister Modi expressed the desire to share the best practices with the world and also the openness to learning from global best practices. He said continuing with India's focus on trade and economic linkages with the BIMSTEC and IOR nations, India plans to enhance investment in infrastructure and facilitate mutual agreements by 2026. More from our correspondent.
In his address during the inaugural ceremony, the Prime Minister mentioned that Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways has created a list of 400 investable projects which have an investment potential of $31 billion. He said government is also focusing on the domestic shipbuilding and ship repair market. To encourage domestic shipbuilding, approval has been given to the Shipbuilding Financial Assistance Policy for Indian shipyards.
This will further strengthen our commitment of overall development of our maritime sector. The Maritime India Vision 2030 has been launched. It outlines the priorities of the government. The Sagar Manthan Mercantile Marine Domain Awareness Center has also been launched today. It is an information system for enhancing maritime safety, search and rescue capabilities, security and marine environment protection.
Mr. Modi said government has initiated holistic development of island infrastructure and ecosystem. Government is keen to promote the use of renewable energy in the maritime sector and is in the process of installing solar and wind-based power systems at all the major ports across the country.
We aim to increase usage of renewable energy to more than 60% of total energy by 2030 in 3 phases across Indian ports. India's long coastline awaits you. India's hard-working people await you. Invest in our ports.
Eminent speakers from several countries are attending the summit and exploring the potential business opportunities and investments in Indian maritime domain. Denmark is the partner country for the summit this year, and Danish Minister of Transport Benny Engelbrecht was present in the inaugural ceremony. With Anand Kumar, Anupam Mishra, AR News, Delhi.
In India, the cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country has crossed 1,48,54,000 on Tuesday. Nearly 5,52,000 people were vaccinated on the first day of the second phase of nationwide vaccination program on Monday. world's largest vaccination drive, which was rolled out on 16th January this year by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, in its first phase covered healthcare professionals and frontline workers. In the second phase, which commenced yesterday, people above 60 years of age and those above 45 years with specified comorbidities are being vaccinated. Here's the report.
Nearly 25 lakh potential beneficiaries registered themselves on the cowin.gov.in portal on the very first day of the second phase of COVID-19 vaccination, which kick-started yesterday. Out of the 25 lakh registrations, nearly 24 lakh 50,000 were citizens above 60 years of age or those above 45 years with the specified comorbidities. The remaining 50,000 registered last day were the healthcare workers and frontline workers. About 6,44,000 appointments for vaccination were booked yesterday in a single day. Government has urged citizens with age 60 or more as on 1st January of next year, including those attaining 45 years or more with pre-specified comorbidities, to register themselves on the CoWIN portal and schedule an appointment for vaccination. Beneficiaries can also get themselves registered at any nearest COVID vaccination center by bringing along any government-issued photo ID card with them. Anand Chaturvedi, AIR News, Delhi.
India's Vaccine Maitri initiative touched the shores of the Caribbean as Antigua and Barbuda received the Made in India COVID vaccines on Monday. Prime Minister Gaston Alfonso Brownie, in a televised statement, thanked the Government of India for the 175,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccines supplied by India.
We received 175,000 AstraZeneca vaccines from the Government of India for the benefit of several Caribbean countries, including Antigua and Barbuda. Of the 175,000, 40,000 were donated to the people of Antigua and Barbuda, and for this we are extremely grateful. In fact, Prime Minister Modi would have demonstrated perhaps the most significant act of benevolence, of kindness, and certainly of empathy that would have seen within recent times compared to any act of any other leader globally.
Now let us take a look at the coronavirus updates from around the world.
World Health Organization has said that the number of new coronavirus infections globally rose last week for the first time in 7 weeks. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus urged countries not to relax measures to fight the disease. He added that it is too early for countries to rely solely on vaccination programs and abandon other measures. The new chief of the World Trade Organization, WTO, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, has urged its member states to work with pharmaceutical companies. She appealed that they license more COVID-19 vaccine manufacturing in developing countries in order to triple global production. UNESCO's International Bioethics Committee, IBC, and the World Commission on the Ethics of Scientific Knowledge and Technology, COMEST, have called for a change of course in current COVID-19 vaccination strategies. UNESCO urged that vaccines be treated as a global public good to ensure they are made equitably available in all countries and not only the highest bidder for these vaccines. WHO Chief Scientist Dr. Soumya Swaminathan has said that India has shown the capacity to be a manufacturer at the global scale. Speaking at the Global Bio India 2021, Dr. Swaminathan added that India is also an innovator when it came to vaccine development. The United States reported a 3% decline in new cases of COVID-19 last week. This is a much smaller drop than in the previous 6 weeks, which has prompted health officials to warn that progress against the global pandemic was stalling. In a first, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo on Monday received a shot of the coronavirus vaccine from COVAX. COVAX is a global facility to procure and distribute inoculations for free to poorer countries. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on Monday said that the EU executive would propose a digital vaccination passport later this month. In a tweet, Ms. von der Leyen said that the scheme is aimed at enabling people to move safely in the European Union or abroad for work or tourism. Microblogging platform Twitter has introduced a COVID-19 misleading information policy on Monday. In a statement, the company has said that the new policy aims at preventing the use of the platform to share false or misleading information about COVID-19, which may lead to harm. This is Nishit Kumar for World News All India Radio.
This is All India Radio, giving you the news. For quick news updates around the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
3 steps to stay protected and stay safe from COVID-19. Wear face mask, 2 gaz ki duri to maintain social distancing, maintain hand and face hygiene.
India has exercised its right of reply at the UNHRC to assert that Pakistan remains a haven for United Nations proscribed terrorists. India's representative at the Indian mission in the UN, Pawan Badhe, has said that Pakistan has the dubious distinction of providing pensions to terrorists.
Madam President, we exercise our right of reply to the statements made by Pakistan and the OIC under the Agenda Item 2. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way we are conducting this session. However, Pakistan's deliberate misuse of this august forum for its malicious propaganda against India, aimed at diverting the attention of the Council from its own serious violations of human rights, has remained a constant. Madam President, the members of this Council are well aware that Pakistan has provided pensions to dreaded and listed terrorists out of state funds and has the dubious distinction of hosting the largest number of terrorists proscribed by the United Nations. Pakistani leaders have admitted the fact that it has become a factory for producing terrorists.
India on Wednesday will participate in the exercise Desert Flag 6 hosted by the United Arab Emirates for the first time. The exercise Desert Flag is an annual multinational large force employment warfare exercise hosted by the UAE Air Force. The Indian Air Force, along with the Air Forces of United Arab Emirates, the United States of America, France, Saudi Arabia, South Korea and Bahrain are participating in the exercise. The exercise is scheduled from the 3rd of March to the 27th of March at Al Dhafra Air Base, UAE. According to a statement, the aim of the exercise is to provide operational exposure to the participating forces. It also seeks to train them to undertake simulated air combat operations in a controlled environment.
India, Sri Lanka and the Maldives have established a trilateral secretariat for National Security Advisors (NSA) on maritime security cooperation on Monday. The Sri Lankan Ministry of Defence in a statement said that the development occurs after the National Security Advisor level trilateral meetings on maritime security cooperation with India and the Maldives. The 4th National Security Advisor level meeting on trilateral maritime security cooperation was held between Sri Lanka, India and the Maldives in Colombo on the 28th of November 2020. The connectivity between Bangladesh and India is set to get another boost with the start of a new passenger train service between the two countries. A direct train between Dhaka and New Jalpaiguri will start in March, connecting Bangladesh with northern Bengal. A report from our Dhaka correspondent.
Marking the 50th anniversary of the liberation of Bangladesh, a new passenger train service is set to start between Dhaka and New Jalpaiguri from March 26th. According to the Bangladesh Rail Ministry, the direct train between Dhaka and New Jalpaiguri will run through the Chilahati-Haldibari cross-border rail route. There are 2 passenger trains currently running between Bangladesh and India. The Maitri Express runs between Dhaka and Kolkata, and Bandhan Express links Khulna with Kolkata. The railway officials of the two sides will decide about the schedule of the train, fare and immigration and its name by mutual discussion at a later date. At present, 5 rail routes connect Bangladesh and India, namely Petrapol, Benapol, Gede, Darshana, Sinhabad, Rohanpur, Radhikapur, Birol and Haldibari, Chilahati. The Haldibari-Chilahati train route was opened in December last year for the operation of the goods train after a gap of 55 years during the virtual summit between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. The passenger train will also run on the same route. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina are expected to flag off the new passenger train on the occasion of the birth centenary celebration of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib and 50 years of liberation of Bangladesh on March 26th. Rajesh Jha, Dhaka.
Japan on Tuesday dismissed China's claim over disputed Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea as violative of the international law. As per reports, Japan's Defense Minister Kishi Nobuo said that the Senkaku Islands are an inherent part of Japanese territory in terms of history and the international law. He said the islands are also under Japan's control. China and Taiwan claimed the Senkaku Islands. Japan's statement came in response to China's Defense Ministry claims that the country's activities off the Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea were legitimate. The Japanese government has recently said that the Japan Coast Guard could legally use weapons against a forceful landing attempt if necessary under the pretext of responding to a serious and heinous crime. A day earlier, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin urged Japan to stop dangerous words and actions that may complicate the situation on the islands. Chinese Coast Guard ships have been frequently spotted in and out of the island's territorial waters. Last month, a new legislation allowed China's Coast Guard to use weapons in waters it considers to be under its jurisdiction. This raised the concerns in Japan. In Myanmar, crowds continued to gather in different parts of Yangon city to chant slogans against military rule as police fired stun grenades to disorient the protesters. There were no reports of any injuries. At least 21 protesters have been killed since the turmoil began. The army said one policeman was killed. Junta leader, Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, in his remarks read out on state television, said protest leaders and instigators would be punished and threatened action against civil servants refusing to work. Meanwhile, in a television interview on Monday, Singapore Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan said ASEAN would encourage dialogue between Suu Kyi and the military. ASEAN's effort to engage with Myanmar's military has been criticized by supporters of democracy, with a committee of ousted Myanmar lawmakers declaring the junta a terrorist group and saying ASEAN's engagement will give it legitimacy. The United States warned Myanmar's military yesterday that it would take more actions if security forces kill unarmed people and attack journalists and activists.
Israel's president formally received the first ever ambassador from the United Arab Emirates following last year's historic agreement between the countries to normalize ties. UAE envoy Mohammed Al-Khaja delivered his credentials to Israeli President Reuven Rivlin at a ceremony in Jerusalem on Monday. The UAE was the first country to agree to establish full diplomatic relations with the Jewish state under the Abraham Accords, a pact brokered by former US President Donald Trump. Israel opened its UAE embassy in January with veteran diplomat Eitan Nahi heading the Abu Dhabi mission. Israel and the UAE have already signed treaties on direct flights and visa-free travel, along with accords on investment protection, science and technology. In a related development, the US State Department has said that it is working with Saudi to ensure peace and prosperity in the region. Spokesperson of the US State Department, Ned Price, made the statement on Monday.
In Hong Kong, hundreds of pro-democracy protesters have gathered at a court where 47 activists face charges of conspiracy to commit subversion. A court has adjourned the proceedings for Tuesday after a democracy activist fainted during a long hearing. Following over 12 hours of submissions from defense lawyers on bail applications, Democrat and District Councillor Clarice Yung fainted in the courtroom and had to be sent to hospital by ambulance. This is All India Radio giving you the world news.
पहली बार भारत सरकार लाई है बच्चों की फन और लर्निंग की जरूरत को पूरा करने वाले खिलौनों का अनोखा मेला द इंडिया टॉय फेयर 2021 27 फरवरी से 2 मार्च 2021।
खेल है भाई खेला है बड़ा रंग बिरंगा खेला है फन और लर्निंग से भरा खिलौनों का मेला है।
पाएं 1200 से भी अधिक एग्जिबिटर से खिलौने खरीदने का सुनहरा मौका। रजिस्टर करें www.theindiatoyfair.in पे।
Welcome back to the world news. The Berlin Film Festival 2021 is underway in a virtual format. An online event started on Monday, which will continue till the 5th of March, restricted to film professionals. A report.
The Berlin Film Festival, or the Berlinale, is underway, shorn of the characteristic pomp and glory that typifies the major international film festival. Due to the pandemic, the organizers of the Berlinale have decided to split the festival into two separate events. An industry event restricted to film professionals and the press is an online format from the 1st of March to the 5th of March. Following this would be a summer special which will feature public screenings from the 9th of June. Berlinale will see the premiere of I Am Your Man, a sci-fi comedy at the Golden Bear competition. The movie deals with the romance between robots and humans.
Hallo Alma, ich bin Tom.
The film from the director of Unorthodox, Maria Schrader, stars Maren Eggert, Dan Stevens, amongst others. Nishit Kumar for World News.
The 3rd of March is being observed as a World Wildlife Day. This year, the day is being dedicated to the links between forests and livelihoods and the experiences of the indigenous peoples. President of the UN General Assembly said that forests are a space for recreation, for balance and for reprieve.
The theme of World Wildlife Day 2021 is Forests and Livelihoods, Sustaining People and Planet. From the redwoods of California to the alpines of Canada, to the lush rainforests of Brazil and Indonesia, our forests are both beautiful and bountiful. They offer us rich biodiversity. They provide air that is cleaner and fresher. And they are a space for recreation, for balance, and for reprieve.
International Women's Day is celebrated on 8th of March every year. All India Radio News honors women achievers from diverse fields by bringing their stories. It is a matter of pride that India has the record of having maximum number of female commercial pilots as compared to other developed nations. Captain Nivedita Bhasin, who began her flying career in the year 1979 as a glider pilot, was the youngest female pilot to command a jet plane. She is also the first female pilot to fly the Boeing 787, the Dreamliner. Talking to All India Radio News, Captain Nivedita Bhasin shared the memories of her initial days as a pilot.
Captain Nivedita Bhasin has many firsts in her name. She was a part of the first all-women cockpit crew. Captain Bhasin says, earlier people were apprehensive in flying with female pilots. She says, over the years the situation has changed a lot. Notably, India has the maximum number of commercial female pilots.
1984, there were just 2 women pilots when I joined Indian Airlines. I joined it as a 3rd woman pilot on the Fokker Friendship aircraft. But today, India has surged ahead of the entire world in the percentage of women airline pilots. Indian Airlines started the trend. We set the ball rolling, and then Air India followed in the year 1988. Of course, it was a very, very small community of us girls, and definitely it was really lonely for us. It was a very difficult life, but with time, I think our colleagues got used to us flying alongside them. There was a comfort factor. The passengers got used to seeing women pilots in uniform, and now we are so many of us, I don't think it makes any difference to either the crew or the passengers to see women pilots flying.
Deeksha Saxena, All India Radio News, Delhi.
Benchmark domestic stocks today climbed around 1% in sync with gains in the global equity markets. The BSE Sensex regained the 50,000 mark while the NSE Nifty reclaimed 14,900 level. The rupee also appreciated 18 paise against the US currency. A report from the Business World.
Sensex closed 447 points, a 0.9% up at 50,297, and the NSE Nifty surged 158 points, a 1.07% to finish at 14,919 points. The broader market at the BSE also gained, outperforming the Sensex. The mid-cap index ended 1.5% up, while the small-cap index appreciated by 1.6%. In the Sensex pack, shares of 24 out of 30 companies surged, while in sectoral indices at the BSE, all 19 sectors climbed. In the global equity market, majority of Asian stocks fell amid a Chinese report about risk of asset bubbles in foreign markets. However, South Korea's Kospi gained 1% and Singapore's Straits Times managed to end with marginal gains. On the other hand, China's Shanghai Composite Index and Hong Kong's Hang Seng both declined by 1.2% and Japan's Nikkei 225 fell by 0.9%. European shares climbed and remained range-bound amid positive cues from the US markets and concern about rising inflation. In a volatile trade, London's FTSE 100, France's CAC and Germany's DAX were trading with gains of around 0.5%. Oil prices fell, extending losses of last week amid concerns that OPEC may agree to increase global supply in a meeting this week. In intraday trade, Brent crude prices were trading around $63.50 per barrel. Back home, gold prices added around 125 rupees per 10 grams at the multi-commodity exchange for April contracts. Gold futures was at around 45,430 rupees per 10 grams, while silver prices fell 320 rupees to around 67,100 rupees per kilogram for March contracts. And at the foreign exchange market, the rupee weakened by 18 paise against the US dollar to settle at 73 rupees and 37 paise. Arjun Chaudhary for World News, All India Radio.
Now moving on to sports. In hockey, in a nail-biting encounter, India drew against Germany 1-1. India's Germanpreet Singh opened the scoring for the visitors. Germany equalized by converting a penalty corner. In badminton, Indian mixed doubles pair of Pranav Jerry Chopra and N. Sikki Reddy will clash with England's Marcus Ellis and Lawrence Smith in first round of Swiss Open tournament in Basel today. In another mixed doubles match, India's Satviki Sainki Raj Renki Reddy and Ashwini Punappa will take on Hafiz Faisal and Gloria Emmanuel Vijaja of Indonesia. More from the news desk.
The Swiss Open will decide on badminton players who are hoping to make it to the Tokyo Olympics. As per the Olympic qualification rules, each nation can enter a maximum of 2 entries in each event. The top 16 in singles and top 8 in doubles qualify automatically. The singles event will comprise 38 men and 38 women, while there will be 16 pairs each in the men's, women's and mixed doubles. The Indian squad is spearheaded by the likes of P.V. Sindhu and Saina Nehwal, who are placed in the bottom half of the women's singles draw. This means a highly awaited all-Indian semi-final between the two Olympic medalists is a possibility. The 3 doubles categories, men's doubles, women's doubles and mixed doubles, and especially the men's singles event, will also see a strong Indian presence. Former world number 1 Kidambi Srikanth begins his Swiss Open campaign against compatriot Samir Verma. The Indians who are currently on course to qualify for the Olympics based on their rankings are P.V. Sindhu, currently 7th in the race to Tokyo rankings, and B. Sai Praneeth, 13th in singles, and Satvik Sairaj Rankireddy and Chirag Shetty, 10th in the doubles. The tournament unfortunately is being held behind closed doors and no spectators are allowed at this year's Swiss Open edition due to the ongoing pandemic. However, fans can catch live action on the Badminton World TV website and the YouTube channel. Nishit Kumar for Sports Desk.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Washington Post quotes foresee that US must stick with two-shot strategy for Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna vaccines. Wall Street Journal reports that Bloomberg to give Harvard $150 million for program for mayors. Globe and the Mail writes that new technologies are giving hope for a low-carbon future in the race to clean dirty industries. Sputnik News writes that Huawei's app gallery rivals Google, Apple with 530 million users in an ongoing US-China trade war. And the Sydney Morning Herald writes that the New South Wales government has approved construction of the Southern Hemisphere's first sixth school in northwest Sydney.
A quick look at the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasizes on reforms aimed at creating world-class maritime infrastructure at the Maritime India Summit 2021. India rejects Pakistan and OIC statements at the UNHRC, saying they have no locus standi to comment on Jammu and Kashmir. Microblogging platform Twitter introduces misleading information policy to prevent spread of harmful misinformation on COVID-19. ASEAN to meet over escalating political crisis in Myanmar. Members encourage dialogue between Aung San Suu Kyi and the military. India to participate in exercise Desert Flag 6 hosted by UAE on Wednesday at Al Dhafra Air Base. And in hockey, India and Germany play out a 1-1 draw at the Europe Tour Series. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favourite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Barbados. And with that, we end this bulletin. See you at same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.